I recently recorded a couple of videos entitled Never Forgive, Never Forget. And in both of those videos, I talked about how things that we are not, that are not simply privileges for us, but that we are entitled to as God-given gifts, that is liberty, life, liberty, privacy, right to assemble, right to protest, and so forth and so on down the line, right to our livelihoods, not being taken away arbitrarily by those who arrogate to themselves the task of ruling over us, legitimately or illegitimately, and whether they're legitimate rulers or not, that is not a legitimate activity. So I in the middle of all of that, and I talked about the different aspects of the way in which this was done, the things that we should never forgive and never forget, in my opinion. I want to return. I made an analogy in the middle of all of that, and those were longer videos, and I want to make it short and sharp. So I'm going to say it here. What happened over the past 2 years is akin to a robber breaking into your home and taking most of your stuff away. So he takes, 90%, let's say, of all the things in your home, because he thinks that it's an emergency situation, and because it's an emergency situation, you're not entitled to having those things anymore. So his theft is justified because it's an emergency situation. Well, whatever the case may be, if that should, whoever was doing this, and however they attempted to justify doing this, whether they stole it while you weren't around, or whether they held you up at gunpoint and stole it from you as you sat there helplessly with them pointing a gun at you. Whichever way it happened, it was unjust. And later on, let's just say a couple years down the line, they decide to return it. They decide to return most of it back to you. Okay, so you had 100% of your stuff. They took 90% of your stuff, and then they decided to give you back 85% of your stuff. So they still have 5% that they're keeping just in case, or they still have 5%, i.e. mandates that are still in effect, or this, that, or the other thing, some residue of what they have the means that they justified for taking all of your stuff in the first place. They're still keeping some of it, but most of it they've returned to you, but they haven't returned in any way that shows any kind of remorse for what they have done, for the way that they have messed up your life, for the way that they have behaved like thieves and robbers and terrorists and criminals, and as if there should be no reckoning for what they did. These are the kinds of things that I say never forgive, never forget, because that's basically what happened over the past 2 years. But nowhere in the Constitution does it say if the government, if the ruling bodies decide there is an emergency, all bets are off, and you do not have the same rights that you had before we declared this emergency. There's nothing like that. Trust me. Nothing like that in any state constitution, nothing like that in the U.S. Constitution. And even if it were not codified in a constitution, these are still things that we have. God-given rights, God-given liberties, the right to our property, the right to not be robbed blind, the right to not to have our livelihoods taken away from us, to have our right to assemble taken away from us, to have our right to get together with other people taken away from us, to have our houses of worship closed down, to have our businesses forcibly closed down. So all of this is what I'm using as a metaphor here, as a parable, if you will, in my scenario of 90% of your stuff being stolen and 85% of it being given back to you. But it's not enough that they give 85% back to you. First of all, they should give everything back to you. They should restore everything to the way that it was before. Secondly, there needs to be a reckoning for them having done what they did. Now, if your answer to this is, well, they did it because they could, and might makes right, if that's really the way you want to play this, well, then two can play that game, is all I can say. And if you really want to play the might makes right game, that's basically thumbing your noses at the people whom you tyrannize, then don't be surprised if suddenly a bullet should find its way landing between your eyes at some point. Don't be surprised if a mail bomb goes off in your hands and blows your arms off from somebody. And if that should happen, you've got no right to complain, because might makes right. But if you want to justify your robbery by saying we get to do this because of emergency powers, well, that's not legitimate either. Those emergency powers that you say you have, you were never in your possession. And next time you try to avail yourselves of those emergency powers, I promise you it will not go so well for you. That's all I'm going to say. Thanks for watching.